Hello, today in my science class, we are going to talk about things that we have discussed previously. The one thing that we talked about was evaporation. Evaporation is what? It is the little molecules inside the air bubbles of the dots that we see the water evaporating into the air. So it's in a solid form, and then we see it go into a gaseous state. Um, Next, we see condensation. Now, condensation, what's an example of this? It could be dew on the grass. And have you ever woken up really early in the morning and took your shoes off and walked into the grass and you can feel the wetness from the grass, and that's dew. And that could be condensation. And condensation is when the water kind of traps in this form of a dot, and it forms condensation, and we can see this even on grass, on the window, on pop, like a pop can, and it's because the air on the outside is much colder than the air on the inside, and so it will form what feels like little cold dots and cold ripples floating down from either the windowsill or like even the pop can, as an example. So when we talk about condensation and evaporation, we also want to keep in consideration different forms that water has. Water can become gaseous and become evaporation. It can become a solid and become condensed into like maybe like an ice cube, or become water like liquid. Something that so yeah, the pop can, and then like there's many examples for condensation, like over 100. Next on the PowerPoint, we're going to talk about saturation. And saturation is when one form is just completely filled with liquid. And this can be an example of a sponge. A sponge can inhale pretty much anything if it is already empty inside. But if the sponge is already saturated, you can't mop up any more liquid with the sponge. It is already saturated. You would have to wring out the sponge in order to soak up more liquid. And so with saturation, we can think of like clouds. And when clouds become just oversaturated with water and liquid, they will fall, and that falling of that saturation would be rainfall. And so we see that in our own atmosphere. The other thing that we want to talk about is relative humidity. And today it's hot, isn't it? It's a very humid day. And with humidity, it is the measurement of water and how much water can go into the air and how much air the water can hold. And so with that, like, we can feel like really hot, we can feel really sweaty, we can feel really gross, and that is just like the humidity. That's like the amount of water in the air. And with that, have you ever like washed dishes before? And you normally would wash dishes with hot water and not cold. And with hot, it's because the molecules are moving faster and faster, and so that fast molecule is able to penetrate the dirty dishes much better than the cold, because the molecules are pulled apart more, and they're pulled together more, so they're therefore harder to break away, like all that grease and all that grossness from the dishes. And that is it. Thank you.